Everyone on Ridley Avenue agreed on one thing about Wren Halloway. That girl was going to be the death of me. They were right. They just had the direction wrong. Wren waited outside the Corbin building in the rain because my last seminar ended at 6:15 and she had that memorized better than I did. She never carried an umbrella for herself. She carried mine, in case I had forgotten it, which I usually had. If a girl in my group leaned over my desk to look at my notes, Wren would already be standing in the doorway when I turned around. Silent. Bag against her chest, chin down, watching that girl the way a cat watches a bird. Once I got a haircut without telling anybody. Wren cried in the stairwell of Delaney Hall for an hour. Why are you crying? The barber took more off the left side. Your head is wrong now. It grows back. In 9 weeks. I looked it up. She had a number ready. She always had a number ready. My roommate Theo Park slept with a chair under the door handle for a whole semester because of her. My mother started calling on Sundays to check that I was still alive. A guy named Dov who sold used parts out of a red hatchback was blunt about it. He would rather owe money to the mob, and I did what you do. More than once. Disappear from my life, Wren. Are you listening? Stop showing up. You are sick and you need help and I am not the help. Last time was in the parking lot behind Halloway Wash, while her grandmother watched through the laundromat window, folding somebody else's sheets, pretending she could not hear a word of it. Wren took it standing up. That was what I never understood. She took it, and 2 days later there would be a paper bag of food outside my door with no note, because a note would have been pressure, and she had decided somewhere in that strange head of hers that pressure was the one thing she was not allowed to use. So when I started dating Claire Sutton, the whole floor of Delaney Hall practically threw a party. Claire was the girl everybody had known since primary school. Claire remembered your birthday. Claire brought soup when your mother was sick. Claire had a laugh that turned a room, and when she looked at you, you felt like the only project she had that week. People congratulated me for weeks. Theo shook my hand. My mother cried. Even B. Nakamura, who shared a room with Wren and knew exactly what she was signing up for, reckoned it was probably for the best. The verdict on Ridley Avenue was unanimous. Noah Vance had finally gotten free of the crazy one and landed the good one. Here is how that went. My father was called Ray Vance and he left me one thing when he died, and it was a lease on a garage bay on Pell Street with a service pit in the floor and a roll door that stuck. I fixed things in there. Pedals, bikes, amplifiers, a dryer, a lawnmower that had not run since before I was born. People brought me broken things and I gave them back working, and there was a jar on the bench with tape on it where they left whatever they thought it was worth. Miles Draper had been my best friend since we were 9. He talked to the customers. I did the hands. That was the arrangement and I never once minded it. Claire thought we should be sensible about the paperwork. She put it to me kindly, over noodles, with her hand on my wrist. Do you know what happened to my uncle? He watched a whole family lose a bay exactly like yours. Would it not be simpler if the lease and the account sat under one name? Miles is the one who talks to the landlord anyway. I signed. Of course I signed. She was worried about me. There was a bag on the rail by my stairs that night. Rice, an egg, no note. I stepped over it on the way in with the pen from the noodle place still in my pocket, and I did not think about it again until I was under a floor. 9 months later there was no lease with my name on it, no account with my name on it, and a story going around Ridley Avenue that money had been walking out of the jar on Pell Street, and everybody knew who had been alone in that bay at night. And when I finally worked out what had actually been done to me, there was one person left in the world who would have taken my word for any of it, and she was the one I had spent 4 years telling to go away. That is what a frame looks like when it is built by somebody good at it. Nobody accuses you. They just look sad about you in front of other people. One person on that street did not believe it for a single hour. She sent me 9 messages in 3 days, and I read none of them, because by then the sight of her name on my screen made my jaw go tight. The thing that killed me was how fast everybody else did. Theo believed it. My mother put a question to me on the phone that she should never have had to put to anybody. Noah. I need you to be honest with me. Do you have a problem? Every single person I had ever fixed something for had already heard Claire being gentle about it, and gentle is worse than loud, because you cannot argue with gentle. By the end I had nobody left to tell. That was the design. I understand it now. Then came the night of the storm in April, and Miles called me. The pit is flooding. Your dad's tools are down there. How fast can you get here? Went. Naturally I went. There was one unread on my phone when I put it in my coat, and it had been sitting there since the afternoon. Do not go to the bay tonight. The grate on Pell Street is underwater. I am standing here looking at it. I climbed down into the pit with a flashlight in my teeth and I was standing in black water over my shoes when the hatch came down over my head and the bolt went across. I heard them up there. I heard Claire. We should go. Standing around here is not helping anybody. Miles wanted to know something about the drain. And then came the sentence I carried into the next life, in the same warm voice she used for soup. He always figures it out. He does not need us for this. Then the footsteps went away and the rain came down through the grate and the water came up past my knees. There was nothing brave in what I was doing at the end. I was screaming into a locked hatch until my voice broke, and I was thinking about how nobody in the world knew where I was. Except somebody did. Somebody always did. I heard her before I saw her. I heard Wren Halloway calling my name through the roll door in a voice I had heard through 100 closed doors and had never once opened. She could have run for help. She had her phone. She had a whole street of houses with lights on. Any sane person calls and waits. She got the roll door up. She got the bolt off the hatch. And when the pit turned out to be a box with the water rising and the ladder loose in its bracket, she came down into it with me instead of standing on dry concrete where she belonged. The water took the ladder out. That was the whole mistake, and she made it on purpose, and she made it for me. She held my head above the water for a long time. She was strong for somebody so small. I found that out at the worst possible moment. She was crying and she was talking the entire time and none of it was a confession. Your hands are cold. Why are your hands so cold? I am going to fix that. Wren. Do you remember the noodle place on Marsh Street? The one with the plastic cat in the window. We are going there. I have thought about what you order. Wren, listen to me. Please do not die. Please. I have waited such a long time and I am not finished. Never told that girl I loved her. I want that on the record. In 4 years I never gave her one kind word. And the last thing out of Wren Halloway was no kind of confession. There was no request about the next life. There was no request of any kind. She got her mouth up next to my ear when the water was at my chin, and her voice came out small and satisfied, like a girl closing a book. Good thing you did not die alone. Then the cold came up over both of us and everything went out. When I opened my eyes I was on a bottom bunk in Delaney Hall with the radiator ticking and somebody laughing in the hallway. My hands were warm. That was the first thing. I lay there just being warm, and then I sat up so fast I hit my head on the frame above me. Theo Park was at the desk in a hoodie he had thrown out a year before he threw it out, eating cereal from a mug because we never had bowls. You look terrible. Are you sick? What day is it? Tuesday. The 9th. Are you sick? Because if you are sick I am moving out for the week, no offense. I got my phone off the floor with my hands shaking. The date on the screen was 1 year and 7 months before the night in the pit. The screen was cracked in the corner in the exact place I remembered, because I had dropped it on the steps of the Corbin building and Wren had left a screen protector taped to my door the next morning with no note. I went and stood in the bathroom and looked at myself for a while. Younger. Stupider. All my teeth. Something is wrong with me. And then, very calmly. No. Something is finally right. First message on my phone was from Claire Sutton and it was 10 minutes old. Hey stranger. Are you free tonight? I want to talk to you about something and I am nervous, which is dumb, because it is you. I knew that message. I had read that message so many times in my first life that I could have recited the punctuation. In the old life I dropped everything and ran across campus with my heart going like a bird. I deleted it. Then I deleted the whole thread, and my hand was completely steady, and I stood there a second admiring how steady it was. And I opened the other chat. There were 112 unread messages in it. Some were days old. Some were from that morning, which meant she had already been awake for hours, doing whatever it was she did with those hours. You did not eat again today. There is a bag on the rail by the stairs. It is the noodles you like, not the other ones. I checked the shelf. Do not get into the red car by the campus. The one by the gate on Ridley. Please. Girl in your group looks at you too often. I am not saying anything about it. I am only telling you so you know. There was one about my shoes being wet. One about a cough I had in October. One that just read, I saw you laugh today, and nothing else, sent at 2 in the morning. In my old life these gave me the crawling feeling up the back of my neck. I used to hold the phone away from my face like it was warm. I read them now and I could not find the horror anywhere. I looked for it. It had gone somewhere and left something else in its place, and the something else was so heavy I had to sit down on the edge of the bunk, because I knew exactly what these were. Every one of them was a person standing outside in the dark counting my meals while I was inside, not thinking about her at all. And I knew how it ended. I had already seen how it ended. Every one of those people who congratulated me, my friend, my mother, my roommate, my girlfriend, all of them turned around and walked into the dry part of that night, and this girl with the terrible handwriting came down a broken ladder into a flooding box. I typed one message. It took me several tries because my thumbs would not cooperate. "Do you want to meet?" Reply came so fast it was almost rude. It landed before my screen had finished dimming, which meant she had been staring at the chat with her thumb ready, the way she probably had for years. "I am already nearby." I went to the window. Across Ridley Avenue, in front of the shuttered dumpling place, there was a billboard for a phone plan with a very happy family on it. Behind that billboard was Wren Halloway. Behind is a generous word. About a third of her was behind it. Her whole left side was out in the open, one shoulder, one arm, half a face, and a yellow scooter with a bent mirror parked in plain view beside her. She calls that scooter Duchess. I did not find that out for another month, and when I did I had to go and stand round the side of a building for a minute. In my old life I closed the curtain when I saw that. It happened more than once. This time I put my shoes on and went down the stairs 2 at a time. She spotted me halfway across the road and she did what she always did, which was start explaining before anybody had put anything to her. "I am not here for you." The billboard was still between us. She was talking to me around the edge of a family eating breakfast. "I am here because there is a shop on this street. A very good shop, and I come here for the shop, and I have been here since not long, and it is a coincidence." Wren. 2 hours. Almost 3. That is the shop, though. "Come out from behind the sign." She came out. Her coat was far too big and the cuffs were turned back twice, and she had a paper bag in one hand that she immediately tried to put behind her back, which is difficult with a paper bag. Up close she looked younger than I remembered. Of course she did. In my head she still had the face from the pit, wet and white and open, and this was a 19-year-old with cold ears trying to hide lunch behind her hip. The floor of my chest gave out a little. I kept quiet for a moment because I did not trust what would come out of me. "What is in the bag?" "Nothing." "N. What is in the bag?" "Rice. And an egg." "Because you skipped again yesterday, do not pretend you did not, you go slow in the afternoons when you skip." I was going to leave it on the rail. I looked at her a long moment. She started to shrink under it. I watched her decide that whatever was coming was going to be bad, and I watched her square her shoulders to take it standing up, the way she always did. That was what broke me. The bag was bad enough. The shoulders finished it. So I put the only question I had to her. "Do you still want to be with me?" Nothing came out of Wren Halloway. I had known this girl 4 years. She had a response for everything. She had responses to questions nobody had put to her, stacked up behind her teeth like firewood. She stood on Ridley Avenue in a coat too big for her with her mouth slightly open and nothing came out at all. Her eyes went to my face. Then to my shoes. Then to a point somewhere over my shoulder, as though the right words might be standing behind me holding a card. "What?" That was it. That was the whole sentence. "Do you still want to be with me? It is not a trick. Who put you up to this?" "Nobody." "Is Miles behind that car?" "Miles is not behind the car." She leaned sideways to check behind the car anyway. Then the doorway of the dumpling place. Then, and this is true, she looked up at the roof of my own building. "Nobody is filming this." "Then you are dying." "I am not dying." "You are dying, and you have made a list, and I am on the list. Between skydiving and telling your mother the truth about the vase." "What truth about the vase?" "Do not change the subject." And that was the exact moment I understood what I had walked into. I had spent the whole staircase getting ready for her to cry, or grab me, or produce something that would frighten me back into my old life. It had not once occurred to me that a girl who had built her entire existence around wanting me would have no idea at all what to do if she got me. She was not happy. She was not even relieved. She had gone completely white and she was breathing wrong, and her hand had come up to hold the strap of her bag like it was the only fixed object left in the world. "Wren. Breathe." "I am breathing." "You are doing something with air." "Is that breathing?" "Because it is not." "There is a catch." "There is always a catch." "Tell me the catch now and I will agree to it. I only need to know what it is first." "There is no catch." "Everybody has a catch." I had nothing ready for that one. I stood on that road with the rice going cold in her hand and thought about all the ways I had taught her that sentence. Fine. Here is the catch. You have to eat half of this. I took the bag out of her hand. She let me, which surprised her more than it surprised me. I sat down on the low wall in front of my building and opened it, and there were 2 boxes in there, because of course there were, one with rice and egg and one with pickled radish, and both of them were still warm. You made 2. One was for later. Wren. For you. For later. I put one in her hands and ate the other one on the wall on Ridley Avenue on the 9th of September. She stood in front of me the whole time holding a box she did not open, watching me chew, with the expression of a person standing on a bridge while an engineer tests it. You are not eating. I am observing. Sit down. Please. She sat. Not next to me. The far end of the wall, an arm and a half away, upright as a fence post, box on her knees. I know what people say about you. Her chin came down. I know what came out of my mouth about you. The chin went further down. I was wrong about all of it. I am going to spend a while proving that, and you are not going to believe me for a long time, and that is fine. Take as long as you want. Wren Halloway looked at the box on her knees. A very long moment went by. A bus went past on Ridley and somebody shouted something out of a window at somebody else. Then, without lifting her head, in a flat little voice. Say it again. Which part? Wrong one. Say the wrong one again. I was wrong about you. She nodded slowly, the way a person files a document they intend to keep. Then she opened the box, ate 1 grain of rice, and closed the box again. That is all I can do right now. That is fine. I am going home to think about this. Okay. I will be at your building at 7 tomorrow morning. Not for you. Because of the shop. The shop. The shop is very good. She got on the yellow scooter and put her helmet on. Then she took the helmet off again and looked at me across the road with an expression I had never seen on her face in 4 years, which was, I am fairly sure, straightforward fear. Noah. Yes. If this is a joke, would you end it today? Not next month. Today. Because I have already started, and if you let me get further in, I do not think I come back from it. Then the helmet went on and she drove away before I could get a word out, and she took the corner onto Marsh Street too fast, the way she always did. I sat on that wall a while with an empty box in my hands. Somewhere across town Claire Sutton was waiting on a reply to a message that no longer existed, and somewhere closer than that Miles Draper was already lying to somebody about something small, and out ahead of both of us there was an April with a date on it. In my first life I chose the girl the whole street agreed was perfect, and she took everything I had and left me under a floor. In this one I was going to choose the one they all agreed was a monster. I was warm, and my hands worked, and the monster had just fed me an egg. She was there at 7. She was there at 10 to 7, which I know because I watched her from the window arrive at 10 to 7, park the scooter, get off it, get back on it, drive around the block, and park again in the identical spot. She had a thermos. She had a paper bag. She had a face like a person who had spent the night reading their own diary out loud to a wall. Did you sleep? I have slept enough. Wren. How much is enough? That question is a trap and I am not walking into it. She handed me the thermos. Inside was soup, and it was the exact soup my mother used to make, which is a very specific thing to get right by accident. How do you know about this soup? Your mother posted a photograph of it 2 winters ago and wrote that you would not eat anything else that week. You found a photograph from back then. I found all of them. Then her whole face changed, because she heard herself, and she took half a step back like a cat that has knocked something off a shelf. Here is what I learned about Wren Halloway that week. She had never once, in 4 years, planned for the version of events where I turned up wanting her. She had plans for me marrying somebody else. She had plans for me moving to another city. She had a plan for me dying. Not for killing me. For the hour after somebody rang her and told her I was gone, and what she would do in it, in order, starting with who she would call first. She had nothing at all for this. So she did what she knew how to do. She investigated. The first thing she did was corner Theo Park outside the vending machines on the 2nd floor of Delaney Hall. Theo reported it to me in the state of a man describing a bear. She wanted to know if you had been to a doctor. Then whether you had received any letters. Then, and I am quoting her here, whether you had recently come into a large sum of money from a stranger. And nothing. I know nothing, that is my entire position. Then she thanked me. Then she gave me a bag of the good crisps, Noah. The expensive ones. I am not proud of how happy that made me. The second thing she did was call the campus clinic pretending to be my sister, to find out whether I was terminally ill. They gave her nothing, obviously. She spent 2 days convinced that meant yes. The third thing she did was follow me, which was not new, except this time she was following me to find out who was paying me to be nice to her. I caught her outside Suri's on Marsh Street, the noodle place with the plastic cat in the window and the sign that has been half broken since before either of us was born, standing in the doorway of the key cutter next door holding a menu upside down. Are you reading that? Yes, I am reading it. It is upside down. It is a very modern menu. Come and sit with me. I cannot. I am working. Working on what? Working on you. That is how I ended up having lunch with a girl who was actively investigating me, across a table, with the file open in her lap. I want to describe what having lunch with Wren Halloway was like, because everybody on Ridley Avenue had an opinion about it and not one of them had ever done it. She did not order. She looked at me and then she gave the men behind the counter my order, and she got it right, including the thing about the broth that I had mentioned once to Miles in a car. Then she went white. I could have got that wrong. I might have got that wrong. Do you want to check it? I do not need to check it. That is not normal. I know it is not normal. I am aware. Wren. Is the broth right? Yes. Then it is right. She did not eat, again. She sat with her hands in her lap and she watched my face the way people watch a kettle. Are you going to have any of that? Later. When is later? When you are not looking at me, said Wren, so probably never. Put the questions to me. She had them ready. Of course she had them ready. Are you dying? No. Would I hear it from you if you were? Probably not immediately. Thank you for being honest. Question 2. Did somebody pay you? Nobody paid me. Did somebody dare you? No. Are you doing this to make another girl jealous? I put my chopsticks down at that one. I put them down because it was the first question that had come out of her mouth with a crack in it, and because I knew which girl she meant. Which other girl? Claire Sutton. She put the name down on the table like a coin she had been holding all week. There it was. Her name in the middle of the second day, in a noodle place on Marsh Street, put into the air by a girl who had never once in her life been given a reason to think she could win against her. What made you think about Claire? Because she came to see me. I sat very still. When? Yesterday. In the evening. She came to Halloway Wash and she waited for me by the dryers and she was very kind to me for 11 minutes. You counted. It is easier to survive things if you count them. And what did she want? She had heard we were spending time together, and she wanted me to know she thought it was lovely. That she has always felt bad about the way people talk about me. That if I ever need somebody who understands, her door is open. And what else was there? And then she wanted to know if I was taking anything for it. The noodle place had a radio on. There was a man on the radio talking about traffic. I remember that with total clarity because I sat there and listened to a man talk about traffic while the entire shape of my second life reorganized itself in my chest. In my old life I did not know that Claire ever went near Wren. Not once. In my old life I believed Claire had barely registered her. He had been managing her the whole time. Gently. In the laundromat. In 11-minute portions. And your answer? That I am not taking anything. And she called that very brave. I want you to do something for me. Yes. Anything that comes out of her mouth, you bring to me. Word for word. Even the kind parts. Especially the kind parts. Wren looked up from the table then, and something happened behind her eyes that I did not have a name for at the time. Later I understood it. Nobody had ever wanted information from that girl before. People had wanted her to stop, and to leave, and to get help, and to go away. Nobody had ever treated the thing she was best at as useful. Okay. That night B. Nakamura found me on the steps of the Corbin building and sat down beside me without being invited, which is the B. Nakamura method. He had shared a room with Wren since the first week of first year. She was the only person on Ridley Avenue who had ever seen the whole thing up close and stayed anyway, and she carried herself like a woman who has survived a long war and is not looking for a medal. I have a question for you, and I would like you to know in advance that it is not a kind one. Go ahead. Do you have any idea what you have done? I think so. No. You do not. Do you know what she was like on Tuesday night? She came home and she sat on her bed with her coat still on for hours. 2 hours, Noah. She did not take the coat off. I had nothing for that. Then she cleaned. Not normal cleaning. She took the drawers out. At 3 in the morning she wanted to know whether it shows on a person when they are happy, because she did not want to look stupid in front of you. Let me finish. For years I have watched that girl take everything anybody has ever thrown at her and put it in a drawer and close the drawer. Everything. Do you know what she does when somebody laughs at her in a lecture? She writes down what she did wrong so she does not do it again. No. You do not know. You are the reason for most of the drawers. There was a long moment on those steps. Somebody was practicing a trumpet badly in one of the rooms above us, over and over, the same run of notes. You are right. B blinked. She had clearly come loaded for an argument and I had taken the argument away from her. So what is this, then? Guilt? Because if this is guilt, I need you to stop today. She survives you not wanting her. She has had years of practice. She will not survive you wanting her for a month. That is the second time in 2 days somebody has warned me off my own decision. Who was the first? Her. B. Nakamura put her face in her hands and laughed with no humor in it at all. Of course it was. Of course it was. Then she stood up, brushed off her jeans, and left me with a sentence I did not do anything with for months. For the record, she is not the dangerous one on this street. She never was. She is just the loud one. On the 4th day I wanted all of it. We were sitting on the low wall on Ridley again, because the wall had somehow become ours, and she had brought a bag of those hard little biscuits her grandmother sells by the register at Halloway Wash for almost nothing. Show you what? All of it. The notebooks. The photographs. Whatever there is. She went completely still. A bus went past. She did not blink at the bus. No. Why not? Her voice went flat as a weather report. Because you will see it and you will leave. That is what happens. That is what it is for. It is the thing I keep so that when you finally go, I still have you. I know it is not for me. Show me anyway. If you see it you will change your face. I might. Then no. Wren. Are you going to make me guess how much there is? Because guessing is worse. She sat with that. She sat with it a long time. Her jaw was moving in that small way it did when she was arguing with herself, and losing. Then she got up and went to the scooter and came back with a canvas bag, and the canvas bag was so heavy she had to carry it against her body with both arms. There were 9 notebooks in it. Everybody who ever talked about Wren Halloway was accurate about the wrong things, so here is what was actually in them. They were not full of threats. There was nothing about hurting anybody. There were no plans and no maps and no photographs of me sleeping, which is the thing Theo had spent a whole semester convinced was in there. They were full of days. Tuesday. He wore the gray one. He ate at the place by the bridge. He looked tired at 4. He got a message that made him put his phone face down on the table and afterwards he was quieter. Thursday. He fixed the green bicycle with the taped saddle for Toby from the 2nd floor and did not charge him and then had no money for lunch. He claimed he was not hungry. Sunday. He laughed properly today. Twice. They went back 4 years. The early ones had drawings in the margins, small awful drawings of shoes and cups in the back of my head. The later ones did not, because the later ones were the years when I was telling her to disappear. Every so often, between the days, there was a line that had nothing to do with observation at all. I do not want to be like this. I stopped on that one. I read it 3 times. It was in the middle of a page about a Tuesday, in the same handwriting, no bigger than the rest, filed between the gray jumper and the bridge. Wren was standing in front of me with her arms crossed over her stomach, and she had her chin up, and she was ready. Say it. Whatever it is. Say it now, do not do the slow version. I closed the notebook. You did this for 4 years, and nobody ever thanked you for a single day of it. She did not understand the sentence. I watched her try to fit it into a shape she recognized and fail. Her arms came apart. Her mouth opened. That is not. People do not talk to me that way. I know. It is not what comes out of you. I know what came out of me back then. This is what comes out now. And Wren Halloway, who had waited 3 hours in the rain outside the Corbin building and taken every word I ever threw at her standing up, sat down hard on the low wall on Ridley Avenue. She cried like somebody had finally taken a weight off her that she had been holding above her head for years and had never once been allowed to put down. I did not touch her. I was not sure I had earned it yet. I sat next to her on the wall with 9 notebooks in my lap and let her. Word went around Ridley Avenue in about a day and a half. Theo Park found out from a girl called June Amadi, who had seen us on the wall, and he came back to our room and stood in the doorway with his bag still on his shoulder like a man who has come home to find a horse in the kitchen. You are dating her? Yes. Her. The one with the notebooks. The one who knows what shoes I wear. He knows what shoes everybody wears, Theo. You are not special. He sat down on his bed very slowly. He looked at the chair he used to put under the door handle. Then he looked at me with the wounded eyes of a man reassessing 4 years of shared living. Am I in danger? You have never been in danger. Noah. She once gave me the exact number of times I have used your kettle. That is not danger. That is bookkeeping. I moved in with you because you were the normal one. You. The one who irons things. And now I have to live with the horror. He moved out for 6 days. He took his pillow and his rice cooker and went to stay with his girlfriend Kit, and he came back on the 7th day because Kit had 2 flatmates, one of whom was a man called Callum who kept a snake in a tank in the kitchen. What is the snake called? Susan. And how big is Susan? We are not discussing Susan, said Theo, and put his pillow back on his bed. By then the whole floor had picked a side, and the side was not mine. Here is a thing I had never noticed in my first life. When people decide somebody is crazy, being kind to that person does not make you kind. It makes you suspicious. A girl in my seminar group called Priya Rains waited for me after class on the 2nd week. She shares a room with a girl called Hannah who plays the cello badly at 8 in the morning, which is the first thing anybody ever learns about Priya, because she brings it up herself. Priya was clever and easy to like, and she was the only person in that room who ever took a question without checking the door first. Can I say something to you that is none of my business? Go ahead. You do not have to do this. Whatever she has on you. Whatever she threatened. There are people who help with this and I know one of them and I will come with you. She has nothing on me. Noah, she waited outside the Corbin building for 3 hours in the rain. I know. I was the one who made her wait. Priya looked at me for a long time. She had her bag against her chest, in almost exactly the way Wren held hers, which I noticed and did not enjoy noticing. That is a very strange way to put it. It is a very strange thing to be right about. She let it go. She did not stop looking at me the way you look at a friend who has started keeping odd hours, and she did not stop being kind to me either, which on that street that year was not a small thing to keep doing. My phone buzzed while we were standing there. Who is the girl with the green bag? I turned around. Wren was across the courtyard, sitting on the low wall by the bike racks, eating an apple with the absolute calm of a woman who has already decided how she feels about something. I typed. Priya. Seminar group. You have mentioned her before. The reply came back in a couple of seconds. I know. I have mentioned her twice. Are you angry? No. Wren. I am managing it. That was the first time I got a real look at what had changed in her, and it is easy to get it wrong, because everybody assumes the change was that she got softer. She did not get softer. She got quieter, which is a different and much more frightening thing. In the old life she would have appeared in a doorway. Now she sat on a wall with an apple and managed it, and the managing cost her something, and I could see exactly what it cost to cross 40 feet of courtyard. I went over and sat next to her on the wall. She kept eating the apple. You do not have to manage it. Yes, I do. I am not going anywhere. Everybody promises that. She was talking to the apple. It is the most common sentence in the world. It is on greeting cards. Then let me put it a different way. When she was talking to me, what were you doing? Counting. Counting what? How long? 2 minutes and something. It stopped being a normal length of time at about 1:40. And what happens when it goes past the normal length? Wren thought about it seriously, which was the thing about her. She never once dodged a question about herself. She would give you the worst thing in her head in the same voice she used for the weather. I start planning. Not anything bad. I plan how to be more useful than she is. I make a list of what she can do that I cannot do, and then I work on the list. Wren. It is a very long list. That is when I did the thing I had spent 4 years not doing, and it took me 2 attempts because my arm did not know the route. I put my hand over her hand on the wall. She went rigid. Completely rigid, like a woman who has sat on a wasp and is being brave about it. Is this allowed? You are my girlfriend. I would like you to say that again in a place where other people can hear it, and then she went scarlet from the neck up and put both hands over her face. Forget it. Forget that. That was a demand. I am not allowed to make demands. The apple rolled off the wall and under the bike rack. Neither of us went to get it. I want to talk about Claire Sutton now, because anybody hearing this from outside is going to want to know why I did not simply go to somebody and warn them, and the truth is that there was nothing to warn anybody about yet. That is the whole horror of a person like Claire. Nothing she does is a crime for a very long time. She caught me outside the library on a Thursday. She had coffee in each hand, and she held one out to me, and she looked at me with an expression of frank and open worry that was completely genuine, because she believed it while she was doing it. I understand that now. That is what made her so good at it. Noah. Are you okay? I am good. You never came back to my message. Which message? She laughed at that, and it was a warm laugh, and a couple of people walking past smiled at the sound of it without knowing why. You are being weird with me. We have known each other since we were 7. I am allowed to notice. Took the coffee. I held it. I did not drink it, and she noticed that too. I heard about you and Wren. There it was. Faster than I expected. I want you to know I am not one of the people being horrible about it. I think it is brave. I think most people would be too embarrassed. And I hope she is getting help, because she deserves that. She really does. She is fine. I know. I know. I only mean that when somebody is that unwell, the person closest to them ends up carrying an enormous amount, and nobody ever checks how that person is doing. She put her hand on my arm while she did it. Light. 2 fingers. A gesture from a childhood of Sunday lunches. I stood there on the library steps and felt the exact thing I had felt in my first life, which is the warm feeling of somebody putting their arm around your shoulders and gently turning you around so that your back is to somebody else. The pushing was never the trick. It is the turning. She turns you. How is Miles? Claire blinked, once. Miles is Miles. Why? No reason. Tell him to come by the bay. Are you opening it again? I think so. Something moved behind her face, so small I would have missed it in my first life, because in my first life I was busy being warmed. It was not fear. It was arithmetic. That is wonderful. Let me know if you need anything at all. She hugged me before she left, the way she had hugged me at every birthday since we were 7, and over her shoulder I could see, across the road, standing in the doorway of a shuttered dumpling place, a girl in a coat 2 sizes too big pretending very hard to look at a bus timetable. I got a message before Claire had reached the corner. 11 seconds. I know. The other ones were 21 and 9. Wren, are you timing my hugs? I am timing hers. She had, and she was right, and I found out weeks later that she was also correct about which ones were the same length every time. Then came the red car. In my first life the message about the red car was one of the ones that frightened me most. Do not get into the red car by the campus. No explanation. No name. Just a warning about a car, from a girl I had ordered to disappear. But here is the stupid thing. I knew whose car it was. Everybody knew whose car it was. I had stood next to Dov Bellamy at a bus stop and taken his opinion on my love life. I read that message and I still managed to file it under mad. I never got into any red car. I also never once wondered why she had written it. This time I went and looked. Dov Bellamy parked on the service road behind the sports hall a couple of afternoons a week, in a red hatchback with a cracked bumper and a sticker for a scrapyard that had closed. He bought things. He never wondered where anything came from, which was the whole business model, and he had the friendliest face of any man I have ever seen commit a series of small crimes. I stood behind the recycling bins for 20 minutes with my heart going and her message from last spring open on my phone, and then Miles Draper came around the corner of the sports hall carrying a canvas roll I recognized before he had taken a step. Were my father's spanners. Miles put them on the roof of the red car and Dov unrolled them and went through them slowly with his thumb, the way you check fruit. I could not hear the number. I did not need to. Money changed hands, Miles put it in his jacket, and then he did the thing that I have thought about more than anything else from that whole autumn. He stood there for a second afterwards with his hand still in his jacket, and he looked at the ground, and his face did something complicated. Then he fixed it, and walked back around the sports hall whistling. He knew. He knew exactly what he was. I sat down on the curb behind the bins with my hands hanging between my knees. My first life, those spanners went missing in the November and I tore the bay apart looking for them and I apologized to Miles for the mess when he came in the next day. I made him tea. He helped me look. My phone buzzed. You are sitting on the ground behind the sports hall. Are you here? No. You are always somewhere at this time and today you are not there. So you are somewhere else. Are you hurt? I am not hurt. Noah. I am not hurt. I need to think. There was a pause. Longer than she ever left. Then, was it the red car? I looked at that message for a long time. Then I typed, "How did you know about the red car?" And I watched 3 dots appear and disappear several times before a reply came. Because I follow you. And when I follow you I see other people too. I have known since last spring. I kept it because you would have wanted to know how I knew, and then you would have stopped talking to me completely, and I decided I would rather you keep the friend and keep me. I read that twice. That is the hinge of the entire thing. That girl had watched my best friend rob me for the better part of a year, and she had kept it to herself, and the reason she kept it to herself was that telling me would have cost her the little scrap of me she had. She had chosen to let me be robbed rather than lose the right to stand across the road. And in my first life, I had rewarded that by calling her a parasite on the pavement outside Halloway Wash. I put the phone in my pocket and I sat on that curb until the sports hall lights came on. Then I got up and went to find Miles, because I had already decided something, and I was very pleased with myself about it. I was going to give him a way out. It is the stupidest thing I did in either life. I found Miles Draper in the back booth of the Blue Cup with a plate of chips he was not eating, making a girl called Sasha laugh while she wiped down the next table. That was Miles. He could make anybody laugh. He made me laugh for 11 years, and all of them happened, and that is the whole reason the rest of it hurt. Noah Vance. Look at this. He is out in daylight. I sat down across from him. He pushed the chips into the middle of the table because that was the rule since we were 9, whoever has the plate is the table's. Are you eating? I am not hungry. Since when are you not hungry? Since I started paying for my own chips, said Miles, and that got me, because it was funny, and because it was also the answer to a question I had not thought to ask him in all that time. I am opening the bay again. His hand stopped over the chips. Half a second. Then it kept going. Serious. Serious. Merrick will do the lease if I pay him for the months I owe. I have most of it, and it goes in my name. Only mine. I do not care how the tax works, I do not care whose uncle lost what, my name goes on the paper and stays on it. Miles put his hands up. Nobody said a word about your paper, mate. That is great, he said, and he meant it, and nobody ever believes that. He meant it. Miles Draper wanted good things for me the whole time he was taking them. He wanted to know what he was needed for, and I gave him the thing I had worked out on the curb behind the sports hall. Front of house. Same as before. You talk, I fix. But you get a proper cut off every job you bring in your hand, that day, and I write nothing down. Miles looked at me with his head tilted. Why would you do that? Because you have never once had money in your pocket at the end of a week. And because I would rather pay you than have you go to somebody else for it. Now. At the time I believed that was mercy. I had spent a whole night lying on my bunk building a plan out of the only material I had, which was knowing what people were going to do. And the plan was this. Take away the reason. He steals because he is short, so make him not short, and the whole thing never happens. Miles held my eye across the table for a long moment. Something went across his face, the same complicated something as behind the sports hall. You are a strange man, Noah. Fine. Yes. Absolutely yes. And he put his hand out and I shook it, and we ate chips, and I laughed at something of his about Marek's dog, and for about 20 minutes I had my best friend back. Wren was outside on the pavement the entire time. She had her back to the window, and she was reading a leaflet about a dance class at the hall on Ferrier Street with the intensity of a woman defusing something. Are you going to go? To a dance class? You have read that leaflet twice. I am reading where it is, said Wren. Not the same thing at all. When I came out she fell into step beside me without a word. Well. He said yes. Wren walked another few steps. Then. And you feel better? I do. Okay. That was all. Okay. And she looked at the pavement, and not one of the things behind her teeth came out, and I found out much later exactly how many of them there were. We got the bay back on the last Saturday in September. Merrick came down to unlock it and complained about his knees and about a man called Petro who owed him for a van, and then he stood in the doorway and looked at the place with something almost like affection. Your father used to make me tea in here. Terrible tea. 2 tea bags. Like tar. I know. I make it the same way and we will get along. The bay smelled like cold concrete and old oil, and it was full of things that had been shoved in when I stopped coming. There was a bicycle with no chain. There was a dead fridge. There was, for reasons nobody has ever explained, a canoe. And at the bottom of the pit wall there was a brick that came out, because my father kept his good chisels behind it and told exactly 2 people in his life. One was a man called Evo who is dead now. The other was Claire. She was 15 and she thought it was the best thing she had ever seen. Wren stood outside on the pavement with her hands in her coat pockets. Come in. I am fine here, Wren. It is raining on you. It is not raining very much. Here is a thing about a girl who has spent 4 years being sent away. You can take the wall down and she will keep standing where the wall was. So I stopped asking her, and I got a folding chair out of the back and I put it just inside the door, and then I went and worked on the bicycle with no chain and did not look at her once. It took her about 40 minutes. I heard the chair scrape. I did not turn around. When I did turn around, an hour later, she had somehow cleaned the entire bench, sorted every screw in the coffee can into 6 smaller cans by size, and was sitting with her hands in her lap looking terrified. I am sorry. I touched your things. Why are those in 6 cans? Because they were in 1 can, and that is not a system, that is a can. That was the first time she made me laugh properly. Not a polite noise. The real thing, the kind that bends you over, standing in a cold garage holding a bicycle chain. She watched me do it with an expression of total astonishment, as if a machine she had been feeding coins into for 4 years had suddenly paid out. Word got round Pell Street faster than the campus. Mr. Odom came in on the Monday with a kettle under his arm and his dog Biscuit on a piece of blue rope. Biscuit is old and enormous and has one ear that does not work, and he went straight to the warm patch by the heater as though he had been coming there for years. Has stopped. Stopped how? Stopped entirely. My wife bought it in the year we were married and it has stopped entirely, and I would like it to not have stopped. The element was gone. A kettle that old, you cannot get the part, and the sensible thing is to send a man off to buy a new kettle for less than the price of the afternoon it takes to bodge the old one. I looked at Mr. Odom holding his dead kettle in both hands like a bird he had found on the road. Leave it with me. Wren was watching from the folding chair. When he had gone. That will take you all afternoon and he will put a coin in the jar. Yes. Why? Because he did not bring me a kettle. She was quiet for a while. Biscuit had left a wet patch on the floor and she was looking at it. What did he bring you? His wife. She was called Franny. She has been gone since the spring before last and he keeps her kettle on the shelf over the sink where she put it. Wren Halloway had nothing for that. She got up and went outside and stood on the pavement for a bit, and when she came back her eyes were red and she pretended it was the cold, and neither of us mentioned it for about a month. Mr. Odom came back on the Thursday and I put the kettle on the bench in front of him and filled it and switched it on, and we stood there like 2 men at a launch. It got to the boil. He did not pick it up. Is it not right? It is right. Then why are you looking at it like that? Because she used to shout at me from the other room when it did that, said Mr. Odom, and I have not heard it in a while, that is all. He took it home under his arm. He put a coin in the jar and he would not take it back, and Biscuit ate half a sandwich off the bench on the way out, which I did not mention. By the middle of October the bay had a rhythm again. B. Nakamura brought her bicycle and stayed the whole afternoon. June Amadi brought a lamp with a cord the cat had been at. A man from the flats brought a lawnmower he did not have a lawn for. Mrs. Pinto came down from Deacon Row with a sewing machine in a shopping trolley and stood over me the whole time, and when it went she clapped once, like a woman at a horse race. A lad called Tomas brought an amplifier that buzzed on the low notes. Mrs. Hart brought a clock that had been fast since her husband set it and asked me to leave it a little fast, because she likes to be early. Gus Halloway, who is Wren's cousin and who drives the van for Marlowe's, the bakery on Wexler, started bringing me things out of the van in exchange for the end of the day bread, which is how I ended up with a canoe and also how I ate that winter. Every single one of them, when they came in, looked first at the girl on the folding chair, and then at me, and then made a face. That was the tax. Being with Wren Halloway cost me something every day, in small looks, in conversations that stopped when I came in a girl at the counter of the Blue Cup asking me quietly if I was okay while she made my coffee. I paid it. It was the cheapest thing I have ever bought. I gave her a key on the last Friday in October. I did it badly. I should have made an occasion of it. I put it on the bench next to the coffee cans and went back to a bicycle wheel like a coward. That is yours. She did not touch it for a long time. What is it? A key to the bay. So you do not have to stand outside if I am late. Wren picked it up. She turned it over. It was a cheap key, cut at Nesbitt's by the bridge, and it cost almost nothing, and I had watched a man make it in 90 seconds while his radio argued with itself about football. Then she put it down on the bench and walked out of the door. I found her round the side of the building by the drain, standing with her back against the wall and her hands over her mouth, making a sound I had never heard from a person before. Wren. Do not look at me. Wren. I have wanted a key for 4 years, she said, into her hands. Do you know what I did instead? I got one cut off your spare, off the hook in your kitchen, in the spring, and I have carried it around and never used it once, not once, because using it would have been the thing that made you finally call the police. She was shaking. Not crying like a person in a film. Shaking like a person who is being taken apart. And now you have just given me one, and now the one in my pocket is the worst thing I have ever owned, and I cannot throw it away because I cannot throw anything of yours away, and I do not know what to do, Noah, I do not know what to do with any of this. Nothing wise came out of me. What I did was take the key out of her coat pocket, which she let me do, and put it on the ring next to the new one, and give them both back to her. Now you have two. One is from before and one is from now. Keep them together. Wren Halloway looked at 2 keys in her hand for a very long time. Then, in a small flattened voice, this is going to sound insane. Go on. This is the first time in my life anybody has ever known the worst thing about me and made it into a set. There is one more person I have to put in here before the winter, and she is the one whose permission actually mattered. Nan Halloway runs the laundromat on Marsh Street. The sign on the front says Sunbeam, because that is what it said when she bought it, and the S has not lit since anybody can remember. She is small and square and she has been folding other people's sheets since before Wren was born, and she has a chair by the window that faces the parking lot. She had that chair in my first life too. She had it on the night I stood in that parking lot and informed her granddaughter she was sick and I was not the help. I went in on a Tuesday when Wren was in a lecture, which took me a second run at it, because the first time I got as far as the door and went home. Nan looked up from a basket and did not smile at me. She is not here. I know. Then you know where the door is. I stood in a laundromat that smelled of hot cotton with my hands in my pockets and I gave her the only true sentence I had. I came to apologize for the parking lot. Nan Halloway put the sheet down. You remember that. Remember all of it. She sat back in her chair by the window and looked at me the way you look at a stain to work out whether it will come out. Do you know what she did that night? She came in here and she folded every basket in the building. It was 2 in the morning and she was folding tea towels that were already folded. I kept quiet. She was 14 when her mother left. Lorna. My own daughter, and I will not have her name in this shop. 14 years old. And she has never once in her life been chosen first by anybody. Not once. Not by her mother, not by a teacher, not by a friend, not by you. Then Nan Halloway leaned forward, and her voice did not go loud, and that was worse than any shouting. So if you are doing this because you feel bad, boy, you leave now. You leave tonight and you let her have the version where you were always cruel, because that one she has practice with. What you cannot do is teach her what it is like to be first and then take it off her. That is fair. I am not being fair. I am being her grandmother. Then Nan Halloway picked her sheet back up and folded it, and without looking at me she gave me the thing that made me understand where Wren got the counting from. 308 days. For what? That is how long she waited outside a laundromat window before she worked up to walking past your father's garage. She was 17. She wrote it on the wall behind the machines. Go and look, it is still there. I went and looked. It is still there. A small neat number in pencil, at the height of a girl sitting on the floor. B. Nakamura started giving lessons in November. News of it reached me late. What I noticed was that Wren began arriving with topics. She would sit on the folding chair and there would be a small silence and then she would produce something like, "The weather has been interesting," in the voice of a hostage reading a statement. And one afternoon B came in with a puncture and let me in on what was happening in their room. She has a list. She writes down things a normal girlfriend does. Then she practices them on me. Practices them how? She sat on the end of my bed at midnight to hear about my day. Twice. The second time she got the tone right and I had to leave the room. I put the wheel down. Is she okay? B gave me a look that had a lot of years in it. She is happier than I have ever seen her and it is terrifying to watch. She is like somebody who has been given a horse. She has no idea how to ride it and she is not going to admit that to the men who gave it to her. It is on the list. B took her phone out, because B. Nakamura has never in her life been able to resist a good bit, and read it to me off a photograph she had taken while Wren was in the shower. Get him onto his day and listen to the whole of it. Do not know it already. Do not name the road he was on. Laugh at the correct time, which is when other people laugh, and not one beat before. Wait to be given things. That last one is on there 3 times. It is underlined. I did not laugh. B stopped smiling too. She is trying to become a person who does not know things about you. Which is like asking a dog to stop having ears. Dinner was Theo's idea, and I have to give him credit, because he was still frightened of her and he did it anyway. 4 of us. Him, Kit, me, Wren. A place off Ridley with laminated menus and a fish tank with 1 fish. Wren spent an hour deciding what to wear and arrived in the enormous coat anyway. She sat with her back to the wall so she could see the door, which Kit noticed and did not mention, because Kit is a better person than most. The first half went well. Wren was careful. She waited to be given things. She got Kit onto her course and listened to the whole of it, and when Kit made a joke she laughed at the correct time, which is a fraction after everybody else, having checked. And Theo, who had been drinking the cheap beer the way a nervous man does, came out with it. Can I put something to you? About the chair. Theo. No, it is fine, I want to clear the air. Wren. I used to put a chair under our door handle. Because of you. And I want to apologize for that, because you have been decent, and honestly I feel like an idiot about it now. Kit closed her eyes. Wren put her fork down and considered him. And then, with total sincerity, you were right too. The table went very quiet. I was outside your building the night you did it. I remember the chair going under the handle. I could hear it. I stayed until about 1. So you were right too. That is what I would have done. Theo did not know where to look. Kit looked at me. The 1 fish went behind the ornament. And then Wren, who could hear the silence perfectly well and had no idea what to do with it, tried to fix it by adding more information, which is a thing she did under pressure her whole life. I do not do that anymore. I have not stood under your window since September. I stand under Noah's instead, and now that is allowed, because he made it allowed, and I check that it is still allowed about twice a week. Kit put her glass down very carefully. Wren. Those are the same building. They are different windows, said Wren. Wren. Was that too much? It was a bit much. Sorry. And then Kit, God bless her forever, came in over the top. Honestly, if somebody stood outside Theo's building for 4 years he would put it on a mug, and the table broke, and Theo laughed so hard he had to hold the edge, and Wren looked around at all of us laughing and slowly worked out that it was not at her. Watched her file that. You could see it going into the drawer. New information. Sometimes they laugh and it is not about you. The test that winter had a name. The seminar group got split into pairs for a project and I got Priya Rains, which is exactly the kind of thing that happens when a list is drawn up alphabetically by somebody who does not know anybody's life. I gave it to Wren before she found out another way, which I had learned by then was the single most important rule of the entire relationship. Priya Rains. 4 weeks. The library, probably twice a week, and I am telling you now so it is not a surprise. Wren took it standing up. She had a whole system for it. That is fine. Wren. That is fine. I said it is fine. Which library? The one by the bridge. Which floor? And then she shut her eyes. Do not answer that. She was very good for about 10 days. She was so good it was worse. She did not appear at the library. She did not walk past. She got me onto my day and did not know it in advance, and once she got it wrong on purpose to prove she had not checked, which I only noticed because she named the wrong road with too much confidence. Then one evening I came out of the library with Priya and we were laughing about something a man in the reading room had done with a stapler, and Priya put her hand on my sleeve for 1 second, and Wren was on the wall opposite. She did not come over. She did not move. That was the thing that stayed with me. In the old life she would have been in front of us before we reached the step. Now she sat on a wall and let it happen to her, because she had decided somewhere that this was the price of being kept, and she was going to pay it in silence with her hands in her lap. Priya saw her. Of course she saw her. She is on the wall. I know. Noah. Look, I have tried to stay out of it, but that is not normal. Somebody who loves you does not sit on a wall in the dark counting. Turned round to face her at the bottom of the library steps, because it deserved something straight. You are right. It is not normal. Then why? Because in the spring after next I am going to be somewhere I should not be, and every normal person I know is going to have a very good reason not to come and get me, and she is going to come and get me. That is why. Priya Rains looked at me like I had started speaking another language, which is fair, because I had. That is a horrible way to choose somebody, said Priya, and she was quiet about it. It is the only way anybody ever chooses anybody. Most people just do not get shown the ending first. She did not have anything for that. She went home. And here is what I did not expect. She did not stop being decent to me. A fortnight later she brought a broken hairdryer to the bay and paid for it and made small talk with Wren about a lecturer they both hated, and Wren was so nervous she polished the same spanner until it was hot. Afterwards, on the way up Pell Street. She is nice. She is. That is worse. If she was horrible I would know what to do with my hands. Recital happened in December, on a night when the heating in the bay had failed and we had a fan heater and a blanket and were pretending that was cozy. I had spent the day being useless. A drill had bitten me. I had promised a man a thing I could not do. I had walked past the Blue Cup and seen Claire Sutton through the window with her hand on the arm of a girl from her course, doing to that girl exactly what she had done to me on the library steps. And there was no way on earth to explain to anybody why watching a kind girl be kind had made me feel sick. Wren watched me be quiet for about an hour. Then she put the blanket over my shoulders and sat down on the floor with her back against the bench, which is where she always sat, and gave me the following. Do you want the list? What list? The list of things you have done that you have forgotten. I have a lot of it. It is the only useful thing I have. I did not know what she meant. I agreed because I did not know what she meant. And Wren Halloway, sitting on a cold concrete floor in a garage with a fan heater going, went through 4 years of my life and gave it back to me. In the first winter, you carried a woman shopping up 3 flights on Ridley and then went back down because she had left the eggs, and you never mentioned it to anybody, and I know because I was behind the bins. You fixed Toby from the 2nd floor his bicycle 4 times. 4. And the 4th time you swore the part was free, and it was not free, it cost you your lunch that week and I know because you did not eat. When your father died you came back on the Tuesday and sat in a lecture and took notes for the whole hour and nobody knew. You wrote nothing on the 2nd page. I could see the 2nd page. Wren. I am not finished. In the spring you stopped in the road because there was a pigeon and you were embarrassed about it and you looked around to check nobody saw. Somebody saw. The heater ticked. Outside on Pell Street a car went past with the bass turned up too loud and then it was quiet again. Gave the man from the flats his lawnmower back and swore it had been an easy job. It took you 2 days. You lied to make him feel better about a lawnmower. You always hold doors and you never look at the person, because you are worried they will think you want thanks. You cry at the bit in films where somebody comes home. Not the sad bits. The coming home bits. I had my hands over my face by then, which is not a thing I am proud of. Why are you telling me this? Because you have had a bad day, and you think you are nothing. And I am the only person alive who has the whole file, so I am the only person who can prove that you are wrong. And she was quiet for a moment, and the rest of it went to the floor, in the flat weather report voice. Everyone thinks I watched you because I wanted to own you. I watched you because you were the only interesting thing that ever happened to me, and I would have gone on doing it for the rest of my life without ever being thanked for it, and I want you to understand that I had made my peace with that, and it was fine, and it was going to be enough. I moved off the stool and sat down on the floor next to her. It is not enough. I know that now. That is your fault as well. January was good, and I am going to spend a while on it, because it was the last quiet month either of us got. We had a routine. She came to the bay after her last class. I made tar tea the way my father made it. Gus Halloway brought the end of the day bread on Thursdays and we ate it sitting on the bench with the roll door half up so we could see the street. She stopped standing outside. She stopped asking twice a week whether it was still allowed. She started arguing with me about music, which for Wren Halloway was the emotional equivalent of learning to swim. My mother rang on a Sunday in January while Wren was in the bay, and I made the mistake of answering it on speaker with my hands inside a food processor. Who is that with you? Nobody. Noah. There is a person breathing. Wren went the color of a postbox and mouthed at me to hang up. Her name is Wren, I said. There was a pause that took about a year off my life. Is she the one who makes the soup? Wren stopped breathing entirely. How do you know about the soup? Because it is my soup, said Della Vance, and somebody has been making it in this town for 2 years and it is not you, because you cannot cook. Then, before I could get anywhere near it. Wren. Are you there? Do you put the pepper in at the start or at the end? At the start, said Wren, in a very small voice. Good girl. His father did it at the end and it was a war for 30 years. Then, on the way out. Noah. The blue vase in the hall. I have known since you were 9, I was waiting to see how long you would carry it. That was the whole conversation. 4 minutes. My mother rang me the next Sunday and asked after Wren before she asked after me, and every Sunday after that, and the girl everybody on Ridley Avenue called a monster got there in 4 minutes with a pepper question. She still did the other things. She still knew what I had eaten. She still went quiet and careful when a girl talked to me for longer than a minute 40. Once I found a note in my coat pocket. You are low on the tablets for your back. I put some in the drawer, and I stood in the street holding it like a man holding a love letter, because that is what it was. And that is exactly when Claire Sutton changed her approach. She came to the bay on a Wednesday afternoon with a paper cup in each hand and a box of the good biscuits, and she was not there for me at all. Wren. Hi. Is this a terrible time? Wren stood up off the folding chair so fast it fell over. I brought you a coffee. I did not know how you take it, so I got the one everybody likes. Is that all right? Tell me if it is horrible. It is fine. You are allowed to hate it. It is fine, and she held the cup with both hands and did not drink any of it. Claire sat on the upturned crate by the door as if she had been sitting there for years. She got Wren onto the cans of screws. She listened to the whole of it. She laughed at the correct time, which she did not have to check for, because Claire Sutton has never had to check for anything in her life. I stood there with a lamp in my hands and watched a woman do to my girlfriend exactly what she had done to me since we were 7. When she left, she hugged me at the door, and then she turned back. Wren, would you come with me to the thing on Friday? I do not know anybody there and I will hate every second of it on my own. Wren agreed before her mouth caught up with her. I got the report that night, word for word, because we had a deal and she kept every deal she ever made with me. Coffee everybody likes. That she did not know anybody at the thing on Friday. That she has always felt bad about the way people talk about me, and that one came twice, once at the door and once earlier. Anything else? You are so much less frightening than everybody says. How did that feel? Wren was quiet on the other end of the phone for a while. Good, in a small voice. It felt good. Is that stupid? No. I know what she is. You warned me what she is. I know. I still liked it. That is the sentence I would take out of the whole winter if I could only keep one. That is the whole trap in 8 words, and I could not do anything about it, because you cannot warn somebody off the first time in their life that a popular girl has been nice to them. The reports got shorter after that. She was not hiding anything from me. She had simply stopped noticing. Week 1 it was word for word. Week 3 it was, we talked about her course, nothing about you. Week 5 it was, nothing important. Nothing important. From a girl who could give you the length of a hug. On a wet Tuesday in February, in the car parked behind the bakery on Marsh Street, Claire Sutton sat in the passenger seat of a red hatchback with the window down 2 inches. Miles Draper had his hands on the wheel and was not looking at her. He is paying me properly now. In my hand. Every job I know. That is lovely. So there is no reason. That is not what I put to you. What I put to you is that the Bay does not have a lease in your name anymore, and I think that is a shame, because you built that place as much as he did and everybody knows it. Rain came down on the roof of the car for a while. He has always been like this. He gives you a little bit and then he owns you for it. He did it to me for years and I let him because he had a hard time with his dad. But you are not his brother, Miles. You are his employee now. I never said employee. You did not have to. Then she was quiet for a bit, and then she said, his father kept his chisels behind a loose brick at the bottom of that pit wall, and I do not think Noah has looked at it since the funeral. Miles did not answer. She put 2 fingers on his sleeve, and got out, and went to buy bread. The money went missing in the first week of March. There was 160 in the jar on the bench, which was more than there had ever been in it, because I had done 3 good weeks and a man from the flats had paid me for the lawnmower twice by accident and refused to take it back. On the Thursday it was there. On the Friday morning the jar was on the bench with the tape still on it and 30 in the bottom, and her 6 cans of screws were on the shelf above it in the order she had left them. I stood and looked at it for a long time. Now. There is a version of me that goes straight to Miles and puts him against a wall. That version is not smarter than me, he is just faster, and I had a whole first life to learn what happens when you move fast in front of people who are better at talking. So I did nothing. I put the 30 in my pocket and kept it to myself, and I went and fixed a food processor. It took 48 hours for the story to arrive back at me from the other direction, which is how you know somebody has been driving it. B. Nakamura got there first, at 9 in the morning, out of breath. Have you heard what is going around? Tell me. That money has gone from the bay, and that only 2 people have a key. Nobody has heard about that money from me. I know you have not. That is what I want you to think about very carefully. By that afternoon it had grown the way these things grow. By the evening it had a shape. And the shape was one that anybody on Ridley Avenue could pick up and carry without effort, because it was the shape they had all been holding for 4 years anyway. Crazy girl finally did something. June Amadi heard it in the library. Kit heard it at her flat. Sasha at the Blue Cup heard it from a boy who had heard it from somebody who worked with Merrick, and Merrick came down to the bay on the Saturday and stood in the doorway with his hands behind his back. I am not saying anything. Say it. I am not saying it. I am saying only, when my brother had his shop, there was a girl. Merrick. I am only saying there was a girl, and he went away up Pell Street, and that was the moment I understood how completely they had me. Because here is the thing about the story they had built. It did not need to be proved. It did not need a name attached. It needed nobody to accuse anybody of anything, which meant there was nothing on earth for me to argue with. I had lived through this exact machine once already. Last time it was pointed at me. This time they had pointed it at her, and it was better aimed, because with me people had needed a week to believe it. With Wren they had been ready since first year. She found out on the Sunday. She found out the worst possible way, which was standing behind a couple of girls at the till in the shop on Ridley while they discussed her. She let it go past. She bought her milk. She came to the bay and she sat down on the folding chair and she put her hands flat on her knees. I heard something today. I know. Did you already know when you saw me on Friday? Yes. Why did you not tell me? Because I was working out how to put it. Wren nodded slowly. Then came the sentence that took the floor out from under me. Did you count the money before or after I was in the room on Thursday? I stopped what I was doing. Wren. It is a fair question. It is the question. I am the one with the key. I am the one who is always here. I am the one who has done things that look like this before, and you know I have, because you have read every notebook. I know exactly where every one of those keys is. That is not the same as knowing. Do you want me to go? No. Do you want me to leave the key? Wren. I am only asking what the procedure is, she said. Nobody has ever told me the procedure. She was not crying. That was the frightening bit. She was completely calm, and she was building the case against herself out loud, and she was doing it well, because she had spent her entire life listening to other people build it and had learned all the moves. I am telling you that I did not take it. And I am telling you that if you do not believe me, I will understand, and I will still come on Thursdays if you let me, and if you do not let me I will still stop. I will still. Wren. Stop talking. She stopped. She sat there with her hands on her knees, waiting for the verdict the way she had waited for every verdict since she was 14. And I looked at that girl in a garage that smelled of oil and cold, and I thought about the fact that the same story had once been aimed at me, and about how not one single person in my life had stood up and produced the simplest sentence in the world. So I produced it. I know you did not take it. How? Because I know who did. I gave her all of it standing up, because I could not do it sitting down. Spanners behind the sports hall. Dov Bellamy and the red hatchback with the Argo scrapyard sticker. The canvas roll on the roof of the car and the money going into a jacket and Miles Draper walking back round the corner of the building whistling. Wren listened without moving. When I finished, one word came back. Since last spring, going by what you gave me. Longer. Since the summer before. He did a toolbox out of Kirby and Son on Wexler as well, and a strimmer, and I did not know they were yours until the spanners, because I do not know what your things look like inside a bag. She stood up off the folding chair and picked up her coat, and the way she did it put the whole room on notice. Right, she said. Where are you going? To fix it. Wren. I will be back by 9. Sit down. Please. She stopped at the door with the coat half on. She had gone somewhere behind her own eyes, somewhere I had only seen twice, and both times had ended with somebody being frightened of her for a year. You know what I have? Tell me. I have him coming out of Kirby and Son with a bag in June. I have the red car 9 times. I have the day he swore he was at his mother's, which was the day he was at the Lion on Wexler with Dana Ovitt, and I have him at the Lion on Wexler on 8 other days you thought he was somewhere else. She was not boasting. She was doing an inventory, in the flat voice, the way she read weather. I have Claire Sutton going into the bakery car park on Marsh Street at 4:10 on a Tuesday in February and getting into that same red car with the window down. Floor of the garage moved slightly. You have that. I have that. I have had it for 3 weeks. Why did you not bring it to me? Because I did not know what it was, and because you wanted everything that came out of her, and she had stopped coming out with anything. And I thought, he will want to know why I was in the bakery car park, and I will have to give him the reason, which is that I follow her now, and then he will look at me the way everybody looks at me. There it was again. Every single thing that girl ever failed to do, she failed to do because she was frightened of my face. And she put her hand into her bag and took out a phone that was not her phone. An older one, in a case with a broken corner. This is the one I keep it on. It is not backed up anywhere. It does not go on the internet. I could put all of it in front of the entire university by tomorrow lunchtime. Miles is finished by Thursday. She is finished by the weekend, because people forgive a boy for money and they do not forgive a girl like her for one photograph of a car. She held it out to me on the flat of her hand, the way you hold something out to a horse. Take it. I do not want it. I only ever wanted it because it was the only way I could be worth anything to you. I looked at that phone for a long time. It would be very easy to tell this as if I am a good man. What went through me was heat. What went through me was the pit, and the bolt going across, and a warm voice saying he always figures it out, and a whole year of being the man everybody looked at sadly. 10 minutes. That is what it would have taken. 10 minutes on that phone and I could have put both of them under the ground. I said no. Wren did not understand. She stood there with her arms still out. No. Put it away. Noah, it is proof. I know what it is. Then why? And that was the question, and I had about 4 seconds to find it, and what came out was not the clever version. It was the true one, because if you empty that phone onto the internet, then every single person on this street gets to be right about you. Forever. They get to have it. We warned him, she had a file, she was building a case, she is not well. Whatever happens to Miles, that is what you become, and I am not going to spend the rest of my life as the reason you became it. Wren Halloway put her arm down slowly. Then what am I for? It came out quietly. She was not being dramatic. She had put the question to herself and got a result she did not like. Wren. No, listen. I am not clever like her. I am not nice like her. I cannot walk into a room and have it turn round. The only thing I have ever been able to do is watch, and I am the best there has ever been at it, and I did 4 years of it for nothing and I did not complain once. She had her back against the door frame. And now the one time it is worth something, the one time in my whole life it would actually save somebody, you are telling me to put it away. So what is left? What is the part of me that you are keeping? I crossed the floor of the bay and took her by both shoulders. You are not staff, Wren. What? You think you are here on a contract? You think there is a job and if you stop doing the job you go back outside. There is no job, Wren. You could burn every notebook you own tonight and be useless to me for the rest of your life and you would still be the person I am with. Her mouth started to move. Nothing came out. She tried again. People do not work like that. They do here. Nobody keeps anybody for nothing. Somebody does. You did. You did it for 4 years and you never sent me a bill. And Wren Halloway slid down the door frame and sat on the concrete floor of my father's garage with the old phone still in her hand, and she cried the way people cry when a wall that was holding something up comes out. I sat down on the floor with her because that is where she was. It took a long time. Somewhere in the middle of it, into my shoulder. I do not know how to be a person who is not useful. Nobody does. You are lying, everybody else seems fine. When it was over she wiped her face on her sleeve and looked at the phone. What do I do with it? Keep it. Do not open it. If a day comes when somebody is in real danger, you open it and you do not ask me first. She put it back in the bag. Then she sat with her knees up and her arms round them and in a completely level voice. Now give me the reason you actually came out of that building in September. The heater ticked. I had known this was coming since the first week. Wren Halloway had let me have my secret for 6 months without asking, which for her was the equivalent of a normal person spending 6 months on the moon. I could have lied. I want to be clear that I thought about it. I died. She did not move. April. Not this April, the one after. In the pit under this floor, in the storm, and I was locked in, and I drowned, and then I woke up in Delaney Hall on the 9th of September in my old body with all of it still in my head. The fan heater made its noise. Wren did not move at all. That is the truth. Nobody else has heard it. There is nobody else on earth who could hear it, because everybody else would put me somewhere with soft walls. And Wren Halloway, without 1 second of hesitation. Who locked you in? Not, are you unwell? Not, that is impossible. Not, prove it. Who locked you in? Miles put the hatch down. Claire was standing next to him. They went home. Wren nodded once, slowly, the way she nodded when a thing finally fit. Then. That explains the 9th of September. I thought somebody had replaced you. I actually thought that. I looked at your hands to check they were your hands. They are my hands. I know. I checked. And for a moment it was almost light in there, and I laughed, and she almost did. And then Wren Halloway went very still, and I watched the second thought arrive on her face, and I would give a great deal to have been able to stop it before it got there. Noah. Yes. How did you know to come and get me? The heater ticked. Because you came down after me. In the pit. You could have run for help and you came down the ladder instead, and you died in there with me, and the last thing you ever said to me was that it was good I did not die alone. I thought that would be the gift. I had carried that sentence across a death to give it to her, and I put it down in front of her like a man putting down something precious. Wren looked at me for a very long moment. And her face did something I had never seen it do, not in the stairwell, not in the parking lot, not on any night I sent her home. It closed. So you did not choose me. What? In September. On the road. You did not look at me and choose me. You already knew the ending. Wren. You read the last page, and then you came downstairs. She got up off the floor. She picked up her bag. She was completely calm, and calm on that girl was the worst weather there is. Do you know what I have been doing since September? Every night. I have been lying in the dark trying to work out what I did right. Which day it was. Whether it was the soup or the screen protector or the year I stopped standing outside your window, because I stopped, I made myself stop, it took me 4 months and I thought maybe that was it. Wren, listen to me. And it was none of it. There was nothing I did. I did not earn anything. A man drowned in a hole and read the ending off the back of the book. She had the door open. The cold came in off Pell Street. I need to not be here for a bit. How long? I do not know. That is a new one for me. I have always known how long. She was gone for 11 days. Let me tell you what that meant, in that particular case, with that particular girl. It meant no messages. None. From a person who had once sent me a photograph of a bus because it was the bus I usually took and it had been repainted. Did not know it was possible for a street to be that quiet. B. Nakamura gave me daily reports nobody had requested, which is the B. Nakamura method. She is eating. She is going to lectures. She has cleaned our room twice and rearranged my shelf by height, which I want you to know I am tolerating for you. Is she all right? Define all right. B. She sat on the fire escape for 2 hours last night in her coat. Facing the wrong way. Facing away from your building. I think she was practicing. Gus Halloway kept bringing the bread on Thursdays. He put it on the bench and did not look at me, and on the third Thursday, our Wren has gone funny again. I know. She went funny when her mum went as well. He got back in the van. On the 9th day I understood something that had been sitting in front of me the whole time. She was not punishing me. She had never punished anybody in her life. She was doing the only thing she knew how to do with a feeling, which was carry it standing up until it stopped, alone, out of sight, the way she had carried every single thing I had ever handed her. So I stopped waiting for her to come back and I went and did the only thing I could think of that meant anything. I went to Halloway Wash at 9:30 at night and I put it to Nan Halloway that I would like to fold. Nan looked at me over the top of a machine. Fold what? Everything. You are not staff. I know. She looked at me for a good while. Radish, the laundromat cat, walked along the top of the machines and sat down between us like a referee. Then Nan Halloway got up and went and got the basket from the back and put it on the table. Sheets go in 3, towels go in 2, and if you do a bad job I will make you do it again. I folded from 9:30 until 1:20 in the morning. I did the sheets and the towels and the tea towels that were already folded. I did a pillowcase 4 times because Nan came and shook it out 3 times without a word. My back went at about midnight. 12:30 she brought me a cup of tea unprompted and put it down and went back to her chair. At about 1 o'clock, from the window, without turning round. She did this until 2. I know. You knew before tonight? You told me. Nan Halloway made a noise that could have been anything. Vera comes in on Thursdays to play cards with her and Vera has never once got a noise like that out of her. She was 14 when she started doing that. She would come here after school when the other girls were doing whatever the other girls do, and she would fold, and I let her, because a person has to put their hands somewhere. The dryer at the end went round with one shoe in it. I am not going to pretend it makes you a good man. Any fool can fold. But you came, and my daughter never came, and I am tired, so you can finish the towels. Wren came down the stairs at 1:20 because the light was on. She stood in the doorway that goes up to the flat, in an enormous jumper, with her hair on one side, and she looked at me standing at a folding table in a laundromat with a stack of somebody else's towels in front of me, and her face did about 6 things. What are you doing? The towels. Why? Because this is what you did. The night I said that thing in the parking lot. You came in here and you folded until 2, and I have thought about that more than almost anything else in my life, and I wanted to know what it was like. Wren Halloway came the rest of the way down the stairs. You are folding them wrong, Nan said. 3. 3 is for the big ones. She took the towel out of my hands and folded it and put it on the pile, and then she did not go away. I need to say something, and I need to get it right, so I have been practicing it for 9 days on a lawnmower. Go on. You are right that I knew the ending. I did. I am not going to stand here and pretend I walked down those stairs in September as a free man with a clean head. She waited. She was good at waiting. But here is what was actually in my head. One night. One hole in the ground. Rain, and a bolt, and a girl I had spent 4 years being horrible to coming down a ladder she did not have to come down, and one sentence at the end of it. That is all I had, Wren. One night out of your whole life. I did not know about the 308 days. I did not know you had a key cut and never used it. I did not know Claire had been coming to this laundromat for years in 11-minute portions, or that you had a list of what she can do that you cannot, or that you sort screws into 6 cans. I did not know that you stopped standing outside my window, and that it took you 4 months, and that it nearly killed you, and that nobody ever noticed. Her chin had come down. I put my hand under it and lifted it, which I had earned by then. Everything I know about you, I learned since September. From scratch. Like anybody else. The book you think I read has 1 page in it and it is the last one, and it does not carry a single word about who you are. Wren Halloway stood in a laundromat at 1 in the morning and thought about it properly, because she thought about everything properly. Say the number again. 308. She put her forehead against my collarbone, which was the first time she had ever started anything, and into my shirt. I am extremely difficult. You are. I am going to do this again. Not this exact thing. Another one like it. I will be fine for months and then I will decide you have gone, and I will go first so it hurts less, and you will have to come and get me. Then I will come and get you. You say that now, and Nan Halloway shouted from her chair by the window, if you two are going to do that, do it away from my clean towels. Miles Draper got his last door in the middle of March. I did it in the bay with the roll door down. I put a mug of tar tea in front of him and I sat on the bench and I gave him the simplest thing I have ever put to anybody. I know about the Spanners. And Kirby and Son. And the strimmer. And the jar. He did the whole performance. To be fair to him, it was a good one, because he had been practicing it his whole life on his mother and on teachers and on Dana Ovid. Hurt came first. Then bewilderment. Then a small laugh, then the shift into wounded dignity, and then, right at the end, when none of it moved me, the thing underneath. You have got a nerve. Have I? That bay is half mine. I sat in here when your dad was dying and you could not talk. I answered the phone for a year for nothing. That is true. All of that is true. Which is why you are getting this instead of anything else. I put an envelope on the bench. Everything I had was in it, which was not much, and under the money was a note of the rest, because what I owed him for that year of answering phones came to more than the jar had ever held and I was going to be paying it off for a while. Take it. Walk out. Do not come back to this street and do not go anywhere near Claire Sutton, and I will never say one word about any of it to anybody, ever, for the rest of my life. That is the whole offer. It does not have a catch and it does not expire until you leave this room. Miles Draper looked at the envelope for a long time. And here is the thing I have never been able to put down. He nearly took it. I saw him nearly take it. His hand came up off his knee about an inch. Then. So I am being paid off. In my own bay. And his hand went back down. He picked up the envelope on his way out anyway, because he was still miles, and at the door he stopped and left me the sentence that showed me exactly how far along it already was. She said you would try this. Then he went out onto Pell Street and I sat in the bay on my own for about an hour. Merrick came down a few days later with his hands behind his back and his face doing something apologetic. He had a better offer on the bay. Somebody had gone to him with 3 months up front and a promise about the drains. He would not name who. He did not have to, because he could not look at me while he did it, and Merrick could look at anybody. I have to take it. My knees. Petro still owes me for the van. You have to the end of the month, and I am sorry, and your father would spit at me. The end of the month was the second weekend in April. I stood in the middle of the bay after he had gone and looked at the hatch in the floor, properly, for the first time since September. That is a thing I have not told you and I am not proud of it. I worked over that hatch every day for 7 months and I never once put a lock on it. I did not weld the hinge, I did not lift it out, I did not so much as stand on it if I could walk round. A man who can fix anything, and the one thing in the building he would not touch was the lid of the hole he drowned in. Wren knew. She never put it in words either. In my first life it had all been much slower, and it had ended in that hole in the April after this one, and I had spent 6 months believing I had a whole extra year to get ready. I went and found Wren on the wall outside Delaney Hall and sat down next to her and gave her the news. The bay goes at the end of the month. She went very quiet. That is April. Yes. That is the same month. It is a year early. She sat with her hands in her lap and did the thing she does, which is go somewhere behind her eyes and come back with a plan. We have 4 weeks. For what? To be ready. Do you know what has been worst about these 6 months? Knowing the date and not being allowed to do anything about it because you did not want me to be the girl with the file. She stood up and pulled her coat straight. I am going to be the girl with the file for 4 weeks. Not on the internet. Not at anybody. Just here, in my head, on this street, until the second weekend in April is over. And then I will stop. Wren. You said if a day comes when somebody is in real danger, I do not ask you first. She was already walking. She got a few steps and turned round. Do not be in that room without me. Any room, any time, with either of them. If they put you in a room, you make sure I am on the other side of the door. Say it back to me. Gave it back to her word for word. I have never in my life watched anybody work the way that girl worked for 4 weeks. She started with the drains. She went along Pell Street and Fenn Street with a torch and looked into every grate, and she found a man called Otto who cleans them for the council, and she brought him a coffee every morning for 6 days until he showed her which one takes the whole street when it rains hard. What does he get out of this? Company, said Wren. He does the grates on his own from 6. Nobody has spoken to that man before 9 in years. It is the one outside the bay. It is the lowest point. If that one goes, the water in this street has nowhere else and it comes in under your roll door and down that hatch. Then she went to Ostro's, the hardware place under Cotter Bridge where the man weighs nails in a saucer, and bought 40 feet of rope with her own money and would not let me pay for it. She kept it in the box on the back of the scooter along with a torch, a crowbar, a folded blanket and a bottle of water. She learned the hatch. She lay on the floor of the bay with a torch in her mouth and looked at the hinge and the counterweight and the bolt, and she came up filthy. That bolt is not a lock, it just falls. And if the roll door is up and the wind gets under it, that hatch comes down whether anybody touches it or not. She timed the walk from Halloway Wash to the bay. Twice. Once at a run. And then she assigned everybody roles, which is where it stopped being frightening and turned into something else. B. Nakamura got a phone tree. B was not consulted about this. She has given me a list of who I call and in what order, said B, standing in the bay holding a piece of paper at arm's length. I am second. Second, Noah. Behind Gus, who has a van, which I accept is more useful than a bicycle, and I would still like it noted that I have known her longer. Who is third? Theo. Theo is third. Theo has a whistle. I have a bicycle and a degree and I am behind a man with a whistle. Who is last? Her grandmother. There is a note next to that one. Do you want to hear the note? Go on. Only if it has gone badly, because it will finish her, said B, and put the paper down on the bench. That is written on a phone tree. In pencil. Like a shopping list. I picked it up. And I recognized it, because she had described this list to me in September, sitting on a low wall, when it was the order she meant to ring people in on the day somebody told her I was dead. Same names. Same order. She had only turned it round so it ran before instead of after. Theo Park was given a whistle. Nobody has explained why. I have been ordered to carry it. If you hear anything on Pell Street after 9 in April, blow it. What counts as anything? You will know. He carried that whistle every day for a month. He carried it to a wedding, at the Harlow Rooms, for Kit's cousin, and Kit made him put it in his jacket during the speeches. Did you blow it? Once. In the car park. To check. And a dog barked at me from a window, said Theo. Bramble, I think. Gus was there. It was not a good moment for me. Gus Halloway parked the Marlowe van at the top of Pell Street on the wet nights and slept in it twice with Bramble on the passenger seat eating the end of the day rolls, and when I let him off he came back with, "She asked me nice," which was the entire argument. In the middle of all of it Wren Halloway was, for the first time since I had known her, completely and visibly happy. That is the thing nobody explains about a girl like her. Everybody on that street had spent 4 years asking what would fix her, and not one of them had ever asked her what she was for. Claire came to me on the last Tuesday. She was waiting outside the Corbin building at 6:15, in the rain, without an umbrella, which I noticed, and I am fairly certain she had chosen it. "Can I have 20 minutes? Walk to the bridge." She talked about her brother Eli, who had got into the school her mother wanted, and about her mother Ruth, who had been asking after me, and it was easy and warm and I will admit that some of me enjoyed it, because I had been 7 years old with this person. Then she stopped in the middle of Cotter Bridge and turned round. "I want to fix this." "Fix what?" "All of it. You and me. You and Miles. I miss you, Noah. I miss you so much it makes me feel stupid." The river was doing what a river does before rain. "I know about the bay." She did not flinch. She did not deny it either, which I still admire in a horrible way. That was Miles. He came to me and he was in a state and he wanted me to talk to Merrick because he cannot talk to anybody without making it worse. I should have come to you first. I know that. And the car park on Marsh Street in February. Something happened in her face then, for about 1/5 of a second, and it was not guilt. It was the sound of a person checking how much you have. "She has been following me." "Yes." "Noah. Listen to yourself." "I am listening to myself." "It is fine." She came a step closer, and her voice went down into the register she keeps for the important ones, the soft one, the one that has been getting people to do what she wants since we were 7 years old. "I am not the villain here. I have known you since we were children. I sat with you at your father's funeral. And you have replaced me with a girl who takes photographs of my car." "It is all true." "Then what am I supposed to do with that?" "Nothing. That is what I came here for. There is nothing you have to do. I am not going to do anything to you, Claire. Not one thing. And you can stop." She looked at me for a long moment on Cotter Bridge with the rain starting. "You have changed." "Yes." "Since when?" "Since a Tuesday." And Claire Sutton smiled at me, the real one, the warm one, the one that turns a room, and left me the kindest and most frightening sentence of either of my lives. "I hope she is worth it. And I hope you never find out what she is like when you are not looking." Then she kissed me on the cheek the way she had at every birthday since we were 7, and walked back over the bridge, and did not look round. Wren was at the far end of it, under the lamp, with her hood up and her hands in her pockets, and Claire walked straight past her without knowing. "You were supposed to be on the other side of a door." "This is a bridge," said Wren. "A bridge has 2 ends. I took the other one." Storm came in on the Friday. It came in 3 hours earlier than the forecast, which is the detail I have gone over more than any other, because if it had come at the hour it was supposed to, Miles Draper would have been in that hole on his own. We were clearing the bay. The van was backed up to the roll door and Gus and I had done the bench and the fridge and the canoe, and the rain started while we were arguing about whether the canoe was worth taking. It was coming down Pell Street in a sheet. I went out with a torch and looked at the grate outside the bay and it was already sitting underwater, backed up and turning, and that is when the whole of my body went cold in a way that had nothing to do with weather. I got her on the phone. "Wren. It is tonight. It is a year early and it is tonight. I am on Marsh Street. Do not come. Get inside somewhere. I am on Marsh Street." Then she hung up. Mrs. Achebe was out on her step above the Blue Cup shouting at somebody about a drain, and a boy called Rufus was carrying crates in off the pavement outside the shop on Ridley with his shirt stuck to him. Gus took the van up to the top of the road because the water was coming over the curb. Are you coming? 2 minutes. Noah. Are you coming? 2 minutes, I said, and that was a lie, and he knew it was a lie, and he went anyway because somebody had to move the van. I went back in to get the last of it, and I got as far as the middle of the floor, and I stopped, because the hatch was open. The hatch was open and there was a light down there. I have thought about the next 20 seconds a great deal. What I felt was not fear. I want to be honest about that. For about 1 second, what I felt was something very close to satisfaction, and I am not proud of it, and I have not been able to get rid of it since. I got down on my knees at the edge and looked in. Miles Draper was standing in the pit in a foot of water with a plastic bag in his hand, and in the bag was money, and he was in the act of pushing it in behind the loose brick at the bottom of the wall. We looked at each other for about as long as it takes to read a name. Then the wind got under the roll door. I heard it come. That is the thing. I heard the roll door go up hard on its runners and I heard the counterweight let go, and I got my hand out and it was not anywhere near fast enough. The hatch came down on my arm above the wrist and bounced and dropped shut, and the bolt did what a bolt does when a hatch drops from that height, which is jump across. And I was on the outside of it. Look at the arrangement of things. I was on the floor of my father's garage with a torch. Miles Draper was in a flooding pit under my feet. And the whole architecture of the worst night of my first life had been reassembled around me with the parts swapped over. I could hear him. I could hear him hitting it and shouting my name. And I stood up and I looked at that hatch, and God help me, I thought about the ladder, and the bolt, and a warm voice saying he always figures it out. The thought did not last long. It lasted long enough for me to still be able to describe the shape of it. Underneath it was a second one, and that is the one I have never got rid of. Nobody had touched that hatch tonight. The wind had. And I had been under it in April with black water round my shoes, and I had heard voices up there afterwards, and I had never once seen a hand on the bolt. So I will never know. Not for the rest of my life. Maybe Miles Draper put it down on me and maybe the weather did, and that is a hole I get to keep. What I do know is what happened next, both times. Somebody stood on dry concrete and decided that standing around was not helping anybody. That part needed no wind at all. Then I got my hands on the bolt and it would not move, because it had jumped across at an angle and the frame had come down on it under load and it had gone hard against the plate. I got a screwdriver. I broke the screwdriver. Water was coming in under the roll door now in a wide brown fan across the floor and going down through the gap in the hatch. I was screaming at him to get on the bench in the pit, and he was screaming that there was no bench in the pit, which was true, because we had taken it out that afternoon and put it in the van. Then the light came across the ceiling. Wren Halloway came in through the water on Pell Street with Duchess dumped on her side in the road behind her and the box off the back of it in her arms, and she was soaked to the skin, and she did not give me one word. There was no question about what had happened. There was no question about who was down there. She put the box down. She took out the crowbar and put it in my hands and pointed at the hinge end and not the bolt. That side, it is a plate and the screws in it are old, and then she was on the floor at the bolt with her ear against the hatch shouting at Miles to get his fingers away from the edge. The hinge plate came off the third screw and then the fourth and the hole had shifted about an inch and the water went down through it in a rush. Rope. She had already tied it round the leg of the pillar. Of course she had. She had bought 40 feet of rope from Ostro's under the bridge 4 weeks earlier with her own money and had practiced the knot on the leg of the bench in a garage on a Thursday while I laughed at her. We got the hatch up between us and shoved it back on its frame. The water in that pit was at his chest. And then Wren Halloway lay down on her stomach on the wet floor and put the rope down into the hole and shouted at Miles Draper to put it under his arms, and she braced her boots against the frame, and we took him up out of there together. He came over the lip and lay on the floor of the bay being sick and shaking, with a plastic bag full of my money still knotted round his wrist because he had not thought to let go of it. I sat down in the water with my back against the pillar. Wren was on her knees next to the hole with her hair stuck flat to her face, breathing hard, looking down into it. Then she looked at me and gave me the sentence I will be carrying when I am 80. Did not have to come down this time. I know. You let me get ready. That is all it took. Everybody spent 4 years trying to make me stop, and you let me get ready, and the hole did not get either of us. Outside on Pell Street, somewhere up by the top of the road, Theo Park was blowing a whistle with everything he had. Nobody called anybody that night. We got Miles Draper into the back of Gus Halloway's van with the blanket out of the scooter box, and Wren made tea in a flask at the laundromat and brought it up the road, and the three of us sat in the back of a bakery van on Pell Street late that night while the water went down. He had the plastic bag on his knees the whole time. Nobody took it off him. Nobody mentioned it. He all right? He is breathing. Is that the same thing? No, said Wren, and poured him more tea. At about midnight. I was going to put it behind the brick. I know. Are you going to say anything? No. Why not? And I had no good version, so I gave him the true one, which is that I had been in that hole and I knew what the inside of it sounded like, and there is not one thing you can do to a man afterwards that the hole has not already done. He cried a bit then. Wren looked out of the back doors of the van at the street and gave him that. Claire Sutton got everybody into the back room of the Blue Cup on the Sunday. She did it beautifully. She did not summon anybody. Her message read, I think we all need to sit in a room and be kind to each other, and half of Ridley Avenue would have walked into a fire behind a sentence like that. Nakamura came because Wren asked her. Theo came with his whistle in his pocket, which he had not stopped carrying. Gus came because he had the van. Priya Rains came because Claire invited the whole seminar group and Priya was the only one who turned up, and she sat down next to Wren without being asked to. Dana Ovid came because Miles had begged her, and she sat down as far from him as the room allowed. Sasha brought the drinks in and then stood in the doorway with the tray against her hip and did not go back out to the counter, which is how much that room weighed. Ines came and stood behind her and did not go back either, and there was nobody at all on the till of the Blue Cup for about 20 minutes, which has never happened before or since. Before we went in, I stopped on the pavement. I am not going to speak in there. Wren looked up at me. Not one word. Whatever she says. Whatever they say about you. Why? Because I have already seen what happens when I explain myself to a room that has been prepared. I did it once. It took 40 minutes and it made everything worse, and by the end even I could hear that I sounded like a man with a story. Wren thought about it for a second. Then she put her hand into her bag and took out the old phone with the broken corner and gave it to me. Hold that. If it is in my hand I will use it. I know myself. I put it in my coat pocket, and we went in, and I did not take it out again. Claire started the way she always starts, which is by being the only person in the room prepared to put the awkward thing on the table. I want to get this out of the way. There has been money missing from the bay. Everybody in this room has heard about it. Nobody has put it in front of everybody and I think that is why it has got so poisonous. Nobody moved. I also want to say something about Friday. Wren, what you did was extraordinary. I mean that. You got there before anybody else and you got him out and I do not think any of us would have been that fast. Wren gave nothing. She had her hands flat on her knees, the way she did. And I hope this is all right, gently, that it does worry me a little, how fast. That is all. Because you knew about that hatch. And I keep thinking about how much you must have been thinking about that hatch. There it was. 9 seconds of praise and one hook, and every person in that room felt the floor tilt about a degree. B. Nakamura put her cup down. Why was Miles in the pit? The room went very quiet. Miles Draper had gone the color of the table. He was helping clear it. He was not. I was clearing it. I had the van. He was not there all afternoon. Then he came back for something. For what? And this is the moment. This is the whole thing, and it went past in about the time it takes to drop something, and everybody in that room felt it arrive. Claire Sutton turned slightly towards Miles, and she did the small sad smile she has done since she was 7 years old, and she came out with the sentence she has used about every person she has ever put down. I think we should be honest about who has actually been carrying this. I watched Miles Draper hear it. I watched him hear it and know it, because he had heard it aimed at other people, in cars and kitchens and on the steps outside exam halls, and he had agreed with her every single time, and this was the first time it had ever been pointed at him. 2 days earlier he had been standing in a flooding hole in the ground screaming, and the person who got him out was sitting 6 feet away with her hands flat on her knees, saying nothing. Miles Draper looked at Claire Sutton. How did I know about the loose brick? Claire had nothing. You gave me the loose brick. In February. In the car. You said, there is a brick at the bottom of the pit wall that comes out. Noah showed me when we were 17, and if a thing was behind it, whoever has the key would have to explain it. Sasha put the tray down on the side table very quietly. That never came out of me. Twice. And again on the phone on Thursday when it started raining. Do it tonight, because the story is better if the water finds it. Nobody in that room looked at me. That is what I did not expect. I had spent a whole life and most of another believing that if the truth ever came out I would be the center of it, and I sat in a corner of the back room of the Blue Cup and I was furniture. Claire turned to the room, and she was still calm, and she was still lovely, and she made the one mistake of her life. Miles has been unwell for a long time. Everybody here knows that. And that was it. Here is precisely what happened. Nothing happened. Nobody shouted. Nobody stood up. There was no moment where anybody pointed at anybody. It is only that every person in that room had heard exactly that sentence out of her about somebody else within the last 6 months, in that same kind voice, and had nodded along with it. B had. Theo had. Dana had. I had, since we were 7, and they all heard her use it twice in 4 minutes, on 2 different people, and the machine came apart in front of them. And then, into the silence, a short flat blast of a whistle. Everybody in that back room jumped. Theo Park took it out of his mouth and looked at it in his own hand like it had gone off by itself. Sorry. Sorry. I was told to blow it if I heard anything. Nobody laughed. Sasha put her hand over her face in the doorway and her shoulders went, and that is close enough. Then Theo, still holding it, in a much smaller voice. You said that about Wren in September. Claire Sutton looked round the room for somebody to land on. And she landed on the person she had been working on since February, because that is where the ground had always been softest. Wren. You understand. You know what people are like. You know better than anybody in this room what it is like when everybody decides something about you. And Wren Halloway lifted her head. You came to the laundromat 11 times. Claire went still. I have all of them. The dates. What you were wearing. What you said, word for word, because I write things down. Everybody knows I write things down. And I am not going to say one word of it in this room, because Noah does not want it, and because I do not want to be the thing you have all decided I am. Nobody breathed. I only want you to know that I remember every single one. And that I liked it. I liked you. For about 3 months I thought a person like you had decided to be kind to a person like me, and that was the best thing that had ever happened to me apart from him. She picked up her coat. That is the worst thing anybody has ever done to me. And I have had some done. Then she walked out through the front of the blue cup past the counter and the fish tank with the one fish in it that Sasha calls Gerald and out onto Ridley Avenue, and I got up and followed her, and I had still not said a single word. I want to put down what happened to them, and the honest version is nothing, in the way that nothing is the largest thing that can happen to people like that. Nobody was arrested. Nobody was thrown out of anything. There was no meeting where somebody stood up and put it all in order. What happened was that people stopped. B gave me the weather every few days without being prompted. Nobody sat with her at the thing on Wednesday. Not in a nasty way. They just all happened to already be sitting somewhere. Ruth Sutton stopped me in the shop to find out how Noah was doing, a month after that. Her own mother. Me. Bellamy stopped parking behind the sports hall that autumn and moved the red car over to Halden Street, and I have never worked out who told him to, and I have never asked Wren. Claire Sutton kept everything she had taken. That is what I want people to understand, because everybody wants the bit where it comes back. She kept the lease she had put in another name and the 3 months up front she had promised Merrick and every single friend she had made since school. And all of it turned out to be a set of things that only work if there are people on the other end of them. The Kestrelon Wexler runs a quiz on a Tuesday and she had a team on it for 4 years. In September the team went out without her and nobody arranged it, which B reckons is the worst thing that happened to her all year. She left at the end of the summer. Her mother gave my mother the version where she had gone to her aunt in another city for a fresh start. Ruth Sutton said fresh start twice. Miles Draper stayed. He did not have anywhere to go and he did not have anybody to go with, because Dana Ovett got up out of that back room and never sat down near him again. He came to the New Bay in September. Gus had put him on the Marlowe van doing early rounds, which meant he was up at 4 every morning, which is the only sentence about Miles Draper that ever gave me any peace. The New Bay is smaller and it is on Fenn Street and it does not have a pit, which was the only condition I gave Yusuf, who owns it and who wanted to know why, and who got a shorter version of this story than you have. There's a cat that came with the building. Wren calls her Sprocket. Sprocket sleeps on whatever I am working on, which is either affection or sabotage, and after all this time I still do not know which. There is a bench outside it, because there is always somebody waiting, and on that bench there is usually a lawnmower or a kettle or a bicycle with no chain. Mr. Farrow from the flats has been on that bench since the spring with a record player that only turns one way, and neither of us is in any hurry about it. Miles sat on that bench for 40 minutes with a broken amplifier on his knees and waited behind Mrs. Vasso, who had a radio she will not let anybody else look at, and behind a lad from Deacon Row with a scooter mirror, and he did not try to talk to me while I was working. When he got to the front he put the amplifier on the bench. I can pay. I know. I mean I can actually pay. I am at the bakery with Gus. It is not much. Fixed his amplifier. It took an hour and it was a bad joint and a fuse. I charged him what I charge anybody, and he paid it, and he thanked me, and he went away down Fenn Street with it under his arm. That is the whole of it. That is everything that ever happened to Miles Draper. People have wanted that to be mercy. It was not mercy. I would have taken the money off him if he had come in with a gold watch, because that is what the bench is for, and a man who has to sit on a bench with his broken thing and wait behind Mrs. Vaso has already had everything out of me that I could ever give him. Wren still checks. I want to be honest, because there is a version of this where the girl gets loved and becomes normal, and that version is a lie sold by people who have never met anybody. She still knows what I have eaten. She still goes quiet and careful if a girl talks to me for longer than a minute 40, and afterwards she gives me the number, because we agreed she is allowed to. She did go again, in the November, exactly as she had promised. 4 days that time. Found her on the fire escape at Delaney Hall facing the wrong way, and I sat down next to her and we did not talk about anything for an hour, and then we went to Binny's on Wexler and ate chips out of the paper on the wall by the bridge. She burned 3 of the notebooks and kept the other 6. She decided that herself. I was not consulted and I did not have an opinion, and when she named the 3, I understood exactly why those 3. The old phone with the broken corner went into the bin behind Halloway Wash in the summer. She did it on her own and told me afterwards, and when I asked her why she waited until it was done, she said, because you would have made a speech. Nan let me put a new machine in last spring in exchange for nothing, which she hated, and Dot from 2 doors up came in specially to look at it. Radish sits on it because it is warm, and the number is still on the wall behind the machines, in pencil, at the height of a girl sitting on the floor. 308. Wren wanted to rub it out when we painted. I would not let her. I asked her to marry me in the laundromat, at 9:30 at night, with a basket of towels between us, because I am not an imaginative man and because I knew how it was going to go and I wanted her to be somewhere she could put her hands. Is this a trick? It is not a trick. There is a catch, then. Yes. You have to fold the big ones in 3, and she cried and folded a towel wrong and Nan Halloway shouted at us from the chair by the window. One more thing. In the summer she started at Marrow's, the framing shop by the bridge. A man called Anwar taught her to cut a mountain one morning and then went and told her grandmother she was the best he had had in years. Marrow's finishes at 6:15. The first evening she was laid out, I stood on the corner and I thought, I will wait in the shop, because a grown man does not stand in the road. Then I thought about a girl in a coat 2 sizes too big, out in the rain, for 3 hours, with an umbrella that was not hers. So I crossed over and I stood on the pavement opposite, where she would see me the moment she came out. There is a billboard there. There is always a billboard. This one is for a bank and it has a man on it pretending to be delighted about his savings. I got about 1/3 of myself behind it. My whole left side was out in the open, 1 shoulder, 1 arm, half a face, and the van parked in plain view beside me with Vance and Sons on the door, which is a joke, because there are no sons yet. Wren Halloway came out at 6:20 and stopped dead on the step. She looked at the billboard. She looked at the shoulder sticking out of the side of it. She put her hand over her mouth. She shouted at me across the road. What are you doing? I am not here for you. There is a shop out from behind the sign. 2 hours. Almost 3. You have been there 4 minutes. That is because I am new at it, and she came across that road without looking, the way she always did, and she has not stood outside a building on her own since.
So, that is a story of a boy who got handed the same 3 faces twice and changed one thing. No powers, no money. All he got was one question settled, which is who turns up when it goes wrong. And he did not use that to punish anybody. He used it to let a girl get ready. Everybody in her life had spent years trying to make her stop. And the man who let her be exactly what she was is the one she pulled out of the ground. Most of us have got somebody we have decided is too much, and somebody else who is easy to be around and never carries anything heavy. Nobody hands you the last page. So it is worth asking, while it is quiet, which of the 2 is standing across the road in the ring?